Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to another episode of Higurashi arc. This current arc, which name is too hard. Hopefully, the other arcs names aren't as hard. Last time, we're still on chapter 2. Uh, for some reason, there's a double chapter break, so it kind of sent our thing out of whack a bit. But hopefully, this is a long ass part before the chapter ends, or we're gonna be like kind of stuffed. But yeah, last time played some Clue. We didn't meet Oishi. That was the big change, and I'm pretty sure Mion met Oishi instead, which is very odd. I wonder what Oishi could have possibly said to Mion. Um, if I had to guess, like I said it before last episode, but it really feels kind of like the Sotsu situation where Mion gets infected or gets level 5 and she tries to protect Keiichi from the village. Obviously, minus the Satoko showdown at the end, but I feel like it might be something like that. Though they did say in Sotsu that Satoko's never seen Mianin like reach high level. So I mean, I don't know. Like I guess maybe it isn't counting this as canon if that's the case, or maybe that's the sign that I'm just wrong. But that's what it's feeling like, which I'm down for because I love Mion. So there's a grievous lack of Takano, but I'm pretty sure one of the console arts is gonna be like a Minagoroshi alternate route, which means lots of Takano. So good enough for me. But yeah, let's so this is like right after right after Mion brought right after walking Mion home, helping her with the groceries, and there was kind of a freaky moment where she said, "Stay away from Shion," kind of thing. So we're back at home now at night. That's right. I bought that new manga recently. I looked around my room, hoping to find where I left it. If mom was around, she'd probably nade me saying you're reading manga again, go study. So the parents are already away too. I think this is like pretty early, right? Manga is a Japanese tradition harkening back to the work of Utamaro and Hiroshige. You know what? I'm gonna look those up because I don't recognize names immediately. You might call it blasphemy. But wait, what is it? Utamaro. Utamaro. Uh, I don't see. Maybe it's like just ancient. Maybe it's talking about like ancient artists before like actual like manga, just like comics. I think that's what the contest is, anyways. But even if I tried explaining that to her, she wouldn't listen. Manga is part of Japanese culture. True, kinda. I'm confident that overseas markets will benefit from the introduction of Japanese manga. Well, that's true. I feel like, I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I feel like anime and manga's definitely just been on an uprise in NA for sure, or in general. Like, I know there's a bunch of like articles saying that it's overselling like the traditional comic industry. I haven't really like looked into it, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely making an impact. I mean, if anime culture didn't hit NA, this channel literally wouldn't be alive. So I feel like the time for that isn't far off. I was absent-mindedly pondering those trivial thoughts. I got home just a little while ago. I was starting to feel sorry for Mion after the penalty she got stuck with, so I helped her carry half her bags. We walked through Hinamizawa, side by side, carrying those huge shopping bags. We carried the bags to Rena's house, but she was out on an errand. I was hoping for a chance to show Rena the enormous bags Mion was carrying and say, Please ask for a little more, but it seems we missed our opportunity for that. After that, I walked Mion back to the Sonozaki house, then came home. However, on the way to Rena's house, I broached the subject of what happened after the festival. It was careless of me. In other words, I was asking Mion about the curse, the topic I knew she had no interest in discussing. Admittedly, I never stopped being interested in the story, not since the night of the festival. When I spoke with Shion along the riverside, and she told me about the victims so far. But there's nothing admirable about asking someone about a topic they'd rather not discuss. But even so, I focused on the last thing Mion said. She seemed especially upset that I heard about the curse from Shion. Fair, you know, even if Mion's like, I mean, we don't technically even know that she's getting it just because Keiichi, in Anatakashi, Keiichi has a bit of it. Though, again, I don't think it's escalating as high. But yeah, Shion's, you know, I'm sure she loves her sister, but she's very prickly. What on earth did she mean by that? And again, I believe this is like, even though this is Anatakashi, so that means like we don't know some of this stuff. We know like I assume just after the answer arts in general, right? So we don't know about the switcheroo and everything later. Yeah. Like, this isn't even that ominous. If it hits different now, reading it like with knowledge. What prank was she referring to? What was Shion poking around in? I feel like, here's a question, like, if you were like introducing Higurashi to someone, would you like recommend them read the consorts along with the main story, like you do Ani, Wata, Tatari, this, then Himitsubushi, or whatever the order is? Obviously it adds like a lot more reading to an already long experience, but I feel like I'm really enjoying it, but like I feel like being fresh into Higurashi without like knowing Maitashi and stuff like revolving around Anotakashi or whatever around everything, it might be like a pretty fun experience. Again, it probably adds like a lot of reading time, but I don't know. I feel like maybe if I get someone to read it, I'd like recommend doing this too. Though it is also kind of complicated to install because you'd have to like install it, the consort patch, and then like uninstall it, unless you have like 2 copies of Himitsubushi. But yeah. Anyways, no more off track. When I looked at Mion's shadow, it felt like I could see the heat radiating out of her. But was that just my imagination? The cries of the Higurashi continued to ring aloud and only compounded my insecurity. Suddenly, I noticed the bag from the bookstore laying on its side under my desk. Ah, that's the one I just bought. It's finally time for me to have some alone time reading my favorite manga. I heard the phone ringing downstairs. I debated if I should just keep reading. I scratched the back of my head while thinking it over, then closed the book.
Hi. もしもし。
Hey. What's up? Just thinking about you. Though. Not great thoughts, but still. It was Mion, who I had only just parted with. Even if she asked, I didn't necessarily have to tell her. She can read our face through the phone. I always thought this was creepy too, but it literally is just reading Keiichi through the phone. Huh? How did she know that? I immediately started looking all around me. Yep. Is she watching me from somewhere? That's impossible. I felt irritated and embarrassed.
なんの用だよ。俺をからかって楽しいのか？
怒った？ごめん、ふざけちゃったね。
I guess I was being a little blunt there.
さ、ちょっと今から会えるかな？
なんだ？さっき会ったばかりなのに。
さっきって？
なんだよ。レナのうちの分とミオンのうちの分の買い物すごかったから。
Oh, is this Shion? I didn't expect them to be so heavy.
そうだったね。
Wait, what the fuck? Shion, why are you memeing, bro? I mean, it was definitely Mion we helped because it was part of the club punishment. I don't imagine Shion doing it for Mion, right? So this is Shion memeing, which is weird. And again, this is before Mayatashi, so you don't necessarily know how the switcheroo works. But that's really weird. Maybe it's something like... Maybe it isn't a Mion goes crazy arc. Maybe it's Mion confronts Shion. Sorry, train's ruining my train of thought. So Mion confronts Shion after she gets back home from the grocery punishment game. And then Shion freaks out and does her thing, maybe? Is the way it's going? Because it's weird that Shion's doing this right now.
なんだよ。俺にそんなに会いたいってか？
I tried to joke around with her. But for some reason, Mion didn't respond with a comeback like usual. She just remained silent.
あれ、ミオン。どうした？
なんでもない。
But she seemed unusually ill-tempered. Was she really feeling okay?
で、なんだ？何か話してもあるのか？
ごめんね。電話じゃちょっと。
Oh no. Was it something so important that she didn't feel comfortable discussing it over the phone? I'm getting so many bad vibes right now. I thought about what kind of topics she wouldn't want to talk about over the phone, and I could only think of one. I debated if it would be better not to say anything, but in the end I spoke up.
もしかして、タタリの話か？
She fell silent for a moment.
もし、そうだとしたら。
Even if she said yes, what was I expecting?
話、聞きたくない？
I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to hear it. But I thought Mion didn't want to talk about it. So why did she suddenly change her mind? Did something happen to her?
もし嫌なら別にいいよ。無理にとは言わないし。
Hold on, I never said that I didn't want to talk about it. Still.
じゃあ、沖宮の図書館まで来て。
I had no choice but to reply, okay. I felt an invisible but overbearing power coming from the other end of the receiver. I flew off my bike, and as I pedaled my bike, I kept thinking, if it is like a Shion situation where she takes over, it is awkward because Keiichi's not that like connected to Shion at all, like no storage shed, and even like they're taught in the library, she's gonna be pretending to be Mion, so it's not like Keiichi can come to the realization that Shion's been missing the whole time if he hasn't even like been talking to her, right? I flew off on my bike, and as I pedaled my bike, I kept thinking.
でも、なんでわざわざ沖宮の図書館なんだ？
Is it something we can't discuss around here? Are you planning to reveal some deep, deep secret? The more I thought about it, the more suspicious I started to feel. When I arrived at the library, Mion was waiting for me at the entrance. I waved in response to Mion, then fixated on what she was wearing.
何？
What, it looks pretty normal, minus gun.
なんかついてる？
Though, there's never a gun on this sprite, right?
いや、何も。
She was dressed in her casual clothes, but aside from that, she didn't look any different.
ミオン、夕飯の準備はもう終わったのか？
Mion looked puzzled for a moment.
どうして？
Since she did all that shopping earlier, I figured she made something substantial for dinner tonight.
はあ、終わって出てきたとこ。
Mian spoke lightly, like it was no big deal, but was it really possible for her to make dinner that fast?
うちのおふくろも料理上手だけど
Yeah, I love how suspicious Kate she is of Mian right now, because, technically that's a bad thing, but he's more likely to, figure out that maybe it's not Mian with all these holes. Even with expert level skill, that volume of raw materials would require an impossibly large amount of effort to prepare.
そんなことないって。材料は多いけど二人暮らしだからね。私とバッチャと。
Come to think of it, she did say something like that a while ago.
で話して
I looked straight at Mian.
うん。ケイちゃんが思ってる通り、お社様のたたりの話だよ。
A cold breeze suddenly blew past, and a cold light came pouring out of Mian's eyes, with an intense, beastly light hiding underneath, just like when we were walking home together earlier. I continued staring at Mian. Why did she suddenly decide to talk about it if she hated the subject so much? Not sure if Mian was frustrated with my lack of response, but she furrowed her brow like she was in a bad mood.
嫌ならやめよう。
My attitude seemed to be upsetting her. Mian's expression was looking more and more fed up.
いやそのあの話をするの嫌がってたはずなのにどうしたのかなって何かあったのか
別に聞きたくないならいいよ。
Mian's expression grew more grim, like I had hurt her feelings. There's no reason to not to hear it. I still had no idea what was going on with Mian, but frankly, I was glad that she was willing to talk about it. And more than anything, I was deeply interested in learning about those frightening events.
待てよミオン
どうなの？聞くの？聞かないの？
Her eyes were cold, like she was looking down on me. I began to sulk at the moment I saw those eyes. I've come this far. I can't turn back now, can I?
聞きたいに決まってるだろそのために来たんだから
じゃ、中で話そうか。
Mian led the way as we entered the library. The lounge looked vacant, so we took a seat in the corner. Mian surveyed the area once again to make sure nobody else was around, then turned to me.
二度と同じこと言わない。だから、よく聞いて。
A chill ran through me. My blood froze over as she stared into me.
聞き返してもいけないってことか
してほしくない。
Okay.
詮索もしないでほしい。
ちょっと待てよミオン詮索されたくないってどういう
ここで聞いたことを調べたり、他の誰かに確かめたり、絶対にするなってこと。
I wanted to speak up, but I held back. After all, responding to questions seemed simple enough. But I got the feeling there would be details to call attention to the story. Surely some questions will arise during the hour or so she's going to spend telling me this story. At any rate, even if I'm not allowed to question people about it, there are probably written materials recorded somewhere that I could research. Plus, I get the feeling that I need to learn about this in order to properly become a part of this village. Thinking about it, human beings are simple creatures with an innate interest in matters like this. What is still hidden? What on earth are they trying to hide?
わかった約束するここで聞いた話を絶対に詮索しない誰かに聞こうとしないこれでいいだろう
Mia nodded in agreement. Come to think of it, that was the second time today I made a promise to Mion. I promised to stay away from Shion. Yikes, unlucky. I mean, it's not really Keiji's fault, but yeah. And then I promised not to investigate this story any further. Was there some contradiction between the two? Or an inconsistency?
これからする話お社様の
You know what would be crazy? What if this is like the arc that like that was the bad end of Mayatashi. Because in Mayatashi, there's actually like a bad end. They added later apparently, but still, I thought it was pretty good, and it was a world where Shion actually gave up on Satoshi and loved Keiichi, and Keiichi gave the doll to Mion, but Shion still got jealous anyway, and Keiichi knew that Shion was disguised as Mion instead of saying that it was a demon, from like, because he could actually tell the difference. I don't know. I don't think that's that case, but it would kind of be cool because I can see, just from what Keiichi's been thinking and this doubts about Mion right now, I can see him come to the realization, at least about him figuring out that it was Shion all along.
つまり綿流しの後何かが起きた。今年も何かが起きて誰かが犠牲になった。
Mion carefully looked into my eyes, then slowly began to speak.
あのね、富武さんが綿流しのお祭りの晩、どうやら死んだらしい。
Not my boy.
うん、間違いなく死
Who
ん
would
だっ
have
て。
done it?
バッチャから聞いてさ。
My mind went blank. What? Huh? What happened to Tomodachi-san? I promised not to ask any questions, so I repeated it over and over inside my head. What happened to Tomodachi-san? What happened to Tomodachi-san? What happened to Tomodachi-san? The question repeated over and over inside my head, throbbing at the back of my ears. I could hear it bouncing back and forth, echoing and echoing. What happened to Tomodachi-san? Suddenly, Mion put a hand on my shoulder. Even though that caused my entire body to stiffen, Mion moved her face closer and continued.
ケイちゃん、どういう意味かわかるよね。
What was she getting at? I didn't understand. Why did he die? What killed him? Was there a reason for it? Mion said that he died on the day of the Watanagashi. In other words, it's this year's curse of Oyashiro-sama. It happened again.
そう、あったの。富武さん、死んでしまったの。
No, that's crazy. That's unbelievable. You can't just say something like that so coldly, like it was nothing. Don't you remember our fun parting farewell? How can you remain calm while saying that? Even so, what was the meaning of this? What the hell happened? Indeed, my head was still shaking from all the questions swirling around inside, but Mian started giving me more details about the incident involving Tomodachi-san. He was first discovered by a police officer who had just finished up guard duty at the festival and was about to head home. It was late at night, around 5 minutes before midnight. The location was around the point where the road to town turned into a paved road. It was near the end of the road where it started sloping downhill.
月明かり以外は車のライトしかない暗闇の中だったって。
I already knew that. There are hardly any streetlights in that area.
その車のライトの中にいきなり血まみれの死体が浮かび上がったの。
If that car hadn't driven by, it probably wouldn't have been discovered until the morning. It must have been pure coincidence that they found Tomodachi-san. Just imagining it creeped me out. Tomodachi-san lying down on the road in a puddle of blood, with blood and filth spread all across the asphalt. The police initially suspected he was hit by a car. However, when they went to check if he was still alive, they immediately noticed something peculiar.
喉がね、ズタズタに引き裂かれていた。
With a knife? Even though I wanted to say that, my welling disgust kept me from speaking up. Even so, my thoughts were clearly conveyed. Mian had been averting her gaze, but she suddenly looked up at me.
自分の爪で。
Nails? What? The nails on his fingertips?
ガリガリガリガリガリガリガリガリって
Telling a scary story, Shion. Scraping? That awful sound echoed inside my head. Scrape, 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 scrape. In other words, Tomodachi-san wasn't murdered.
自殺
The police had reached the same conclusion. I quietly thought it over. Shortly after partying with us, Tomodachi-san started scratching at his throat with his own fingernails. He scratched so hard it tore his throat apart. Even after he broke the skin and the blood came pouring out, Tomodachi-san still wouldn't stop, scraping and scraping.
爪がほとんど剥げていたそうだよ
Peeled off, scraping away with incredible force and scraping even more. And then, scraping away at his veins and arteries. Pop, scrape. Spraying blood all around him. With blood pouring out of his mouth, vomiting it out, and then he fell to the ground having convulsions, suffocating. Despite the particularly abnormal cause of death, there were no traces of any drugs in his body.
薬物中毒じゃないのか
Mian calmly shook her head in response. But could he have really committed suicide? I've never heard of anything like that. Like this. It's not normal. It's not a normal way to die. What is there even to say about a death so mysterious? Among all the deaths in the past 5 years, this is the one that most resembles a curse. The surrounding area was unusual too. A piece of lumber was laying by the corpse's feet. Traces of Tomodachi-san's blood were found on this piece of wood, and the scar tissue on his hand matched the square shape of the lumber. There were signs that the surrounding trees and guardrails were struck with it. Tomodachi-san's bloodstains were scattered all around them. So what does that mean?
富武さんはね喉を爪でかきむしりながら血を滴らせて血まみれになりながら角材を片手で振り回していたということ
Was he trying to defend himself from someone? Mian silently nodded to me. On top of that, there were several scars spread across his body.
富武さんは何者かに暴行を受けたらしいしかもたくさんの人間たちに寄ってたかって
Tomodachi-san was surrounded by people and fought back. He tried running down the dimly lit road, but once it became clear that he couldn't escape, he fought back using that piece of lumber. All the while, Tomodachi-san was deliriously scratching at his throat, scraping and scraping. And then he died. The silence felt like it could go on forever. Then Mion suddenly lifted the heavy curtain of silence, with another inconceivable thing to say.
おかげで私たちまた疑われてるんだ
She said that quietly. Suspects? What? Who? What for? Why? After hearing that whole story about Tomodachi-san's horrific death, hearing that follow-up comment with no context had me doubting my ears.
今までの事件は全部園崎家が裏で糸を引いてるんじゃないかって警察にね綿流しの夜の事件の被害者は全員園崎家にとって不都合な人たちばっかりだ
Besides Tomodachi. Come to think of it, all the incidents so far did benefit the Sonozaki family. Through Hinamizawa's history, all the victims so far have been people connected to the dam war.
毎年綿流しの日に旧敵がそれだけで十分に疑われる
Thinking back on it, first it was the dam construction manager, next the villagers who supported the dam. People who supported the dam construction projects were dying mysteriously, one after another. The cause of death varied, but the victims were all supporters. In other words, they were all opponents for the Sonozaki family. There was no solid evidence, only rumors and circumstantial evidence to support it. But it certainly seemed difficult to just laugh it off. But Hold on, what about the shrine priest and his wife, who were next to die?
園崎家とは関係が薄い。
そう薄い
It was a petty
薄いの
death.
に
Legit. Well, not petty. I mean, it was kind of petty, but there was a purpose of getting Rika. But still, Tateno's greatest sin. Kinda. I mean, not really. I guess she did genocide a village, but even in the arc where you stop her, she did. If you had to pin one thing on her, she did literally just kill the Furude parents. I suddenly noticed a hint of sadness in Mion's eyes, but I could see the cold light of malediction in there as well.
その家の主婦は撲殺されたの
I already knew that story. Shion told me about the incident.
確かその家の子がその後に消えてしまったんだよな。
その子はね去年まで私たちと同じ学校にい
Learning
た
about Satoshi and just getting the truth about him disappearing already is definitely different from Anatotsushi. Went to the same school as us until last year.
名前は北条聡君同じクラスにいたんだ聡子のお兄さんなの
The air around me suddenly grew thin. My lips were quivering. I felt like a goldfish separated from the fishbowl, desperately struggling to breathe. Satoko's grief-stricken eyes flashed before me, then dissipated. Unbelievable. Satoko lost her brother to the curse? Even as the people close to me are being caught up with the so-called curse. I began to tremble. My head was rapidly spinning. Hold on. Tomodachi-san has an even weaker connection. He's not related to the damn conflict at all. Isn't it strange for an outsider to be killed for no reason?
そういうこと初めこそダム工事関係者に偏っていただけど時が経つにつれて犠牲者の関係した度合いは希薄になってきている
つまりそれは
It doesn't matter if you're related to the dam project or not, as long as you're an enemy of the Sonozaki family. It's possible that Satoshi was an enemy of the Sonozaki family too. Maybe he learned one of the Sonozaki family's secrets, or something like that, and so he had to be eliminated? A chill ran down my spine. I hadn't been able to speak up for a while now. I could barely even bring myself to swallow the spit in the back of my throat. Even after I managed to swallow it, the sound of the gulp echoed inside my ears. False accusations, baseless suspicion, the outrageous theories. But wait, is that really a false accusation? Is it so baseless? I stared intently at Mion, but she immediately averted her gaze. Was Satoshi erased because he learned something he shouldn't know? Could Tomodachi-san's death have something to do with it too? And what about me? Am I starting to become a nuisance for the Sonozaki family?
なんでそんなことを俺に話したんだ
そう簡単に話せない理由を知っていてほしかったんだでもこのことは部活のみんなには絶対に内緒だよ
Why keep it a secret?
みんながたたりに過敏になっている自分にその害が及ばないようにってね
I responded with a vague nod. Indeed, it was pretty clear from the atmosphere that everyone wanted to avoid the topic, but
それに特に聡子の前で
true?
はこんな話したくない
That seemed obvious. Nobody would want to talk about a curse that took their brother away from them. Still,
わかっただからここで会って話をしたことも誰にも絶対に内緒だからねもし約束を破ったら ケ
okay.
イちゃんはきっと後悔する
Scary. Mion's eyes radiated like a sword made of ice. A chill ran through me. There was nothing I could do to defend against her gaze.
わかったここで会ったことは秘密にする絶対に約束する
Just then, I heard the announcement that it was closing time. Mion and I made our way out of the library.
お おじさんさ、これから親戚のところに行かないといけないんだ。
After saying that, Mian and I waved to each other in front of the library, then started walking in opposite directions. The next moment, I heard a familiar voice calling out to me. I know. Oh yeah, she was out in an errand, so made sense she's still out. I spun around in a flash. Rena was sitting on her bike. The basket on her bike was full of shopping bags.
どうしたのこんなところで。
あ、いや、たまには図書館もいいかなってさ。
へえ。
なんだよ、その顔は。
Such a bad liar.
ここって涼しくていいところだもんね。
それにタダだしな。
そうだね。
じゃあ、また明日な。
I wanted to get out of here as soon as possible, so I tried heading toward the bike rack, but Rena moved in front to block me.
どうしてそんなに慌ててるのかな。
Kana?
あ、慌ててなんかないぞ。
そうかな。かな。
暗くなってきたしさ。早く帰ろうかなって思っただけだ。
じゃあ一緒に帰ろうよ。
She lightly tilted her head and looked me straight in the eyes. I could clearly see the suspicion in her eyes.
なんだよ。
Well, to be fair, like just looking at this from our perspective, knowing everything, Keiichi does sound so suspicious. Like I can even like tell. He sounds so sus right now, so it made sense Rena would be kind of inquiring. She was just quietly looking at me, but somehow it made me feel uncomfortable. Oh,
図
creepy
書
eyed Rena?
館で何してたの
Haven't
か
seen
な
it
っ
yet.
て。
勉強だよ、勉強。
I quietly looked in the direction of the library as I said that Mian was already long gone. My conversation with Mian was still nagging at me. What was she thinking, sharing such a serious secret with me? Mian seemed concerned that the police suspected her. That much was fine. I'll do whatever I can to help her, but even so... Excuse me. If you could get eliminated in the name of the curse for the crime of learning something better left unknown, something the Sonozaki family didn't want people knowing, then would I be the next one eliminated?
ねえケイチくん、誰かと一緒にいなかったかな。
Oh,
かな。
does she see Mian? Huh?
さっき誰かと一緒にいたような気がしたんだけど。
It's a secret.
一人だよ。
本当？
本当だよ。
でも
でもなんだよ。
Yeah, she's totally saw.
髪の長い女の子が隣にいたような気がしたから。
Yikes, did one Keiichi. I don't know why he just doesn't say it was talking about Mion and then just not bring up the curse talk and just say like, oh yeah, we were just reading manga or something. Now he's like all tangled up. She saw that? In that case, my deceit was all for naught, so I started thinking.
ああ、あれは隣に座ってた人。
そうなんだ。
Rena carefully looked me up and down.
なんだよ。
だって座ってたのが隣でも一緒に出てくるのかなって。
たまたま一緒に出てきたんだよ。
Oh, no.
嘘。
True. Oh, how could she tell my
あ
lies?
の女の子と
They're
絶
so
対前から
flawless.
知り合いだったはずだよ。
She knows it's Mion, like.
なんでそんなこと
ね
わかるんだよ。
だってケイチくんの動きとても自然だったもん。
俺はいつでも自然だぞ。
うん。でもだったらおかしいね。
俺のどこがおかしいって言うんだ。
知らない人と会ってるのにどうしてあんなに自然なのかな。
I was shocked.
だってケイチくん自意識過剰なところがあるから、知らない人といると動きがギクシャクするんだよ。
Indeed, I do have some trouble talking to people that I haven't met before.
それに
Also?
ケイチくん、 嘘つくと
Whoa!
鼻がピクピクするもん。
That's a new tat. I didn't know that. What? I held my hand to my nose. Did I really do that? Or is this just like the classic trick where it's actually a lie, but she was just telling? Because if Keiichi did check his nose, that means he was lying. Yeah, like classic trick. Do I really do that? Black. Blackness. Then Rena suddenly started giggling.
引っかかり
Yeah. It's the trick. She taught me.
知らない人じゃなかったんでしょ
Just say it was Mion and you were just chilling. I could hardly make a sound in response. So, as a last resort.
実はさ、彼女も同い年で
Oh my god.
話があっちゃってさ、
Okay.
最近友達になったんだ。
It took my lie even further. Good one, bro.
沖宮の子
I nodded in response to Rena's question.
そうらしい。
どこの学校だって
Otonomiya High School. Huh? I don't know the middle schools in Otonomiya. Or middle school. Whatever. There's like one. There's literally one. I just really thought it over and tried to find something to say.
いや、聞いてないな。
どこの学校も聞かずにおかしいな。ふん
Just a little strange. Rena unnaturally tilted her head to the side. Then she looked at me with a big grin.
嘘だよやっぱり
Easy. I finally realized that Rena had me completely ensnared in a trap. But I still couldn't tell her I was with
分
Mion.
かった
Why?
だからここで会って話をしたことも
Come on, bro. Just say you were with Mion and that you were just like on a date or something.
もし約束を破ったらケイちゃんはきっと後悔する
My bad. My promise to Mion was still echoing in the back of my head. My face looked painfully distorted. I was desperately thinking of how to get out of here. Then Rena suddenly burst out laughing.
ケイチくん冗談だよ
Bang, she gave me a good hard pat on the shoulder. What?
ひょっとして一目惚れ
I mean, probably why Rena was hard questioning seeing Keiichi with the girl.
いや、
わかったこれ以上は聞かないでおくね
What was she implying?
でも意外だなケイチくん
Unexpected? What is so unexpected?
大丈夫だよレナ誰にも言わないから
Rena let out one more laugh as she straddled her bike, then smiled while driving off.
おい、レナ、
Just a quick Rena drive-by.
ちょっと待てって。
I rushed over to my bike. Then we pedaled our bikes toward Hinamizawa together. Rena continued laughing and making fun of me along the way. At any rate, I somehow managed to succeed in keeping my secret. But no matter how loud Rena was talking and laughing, I could still hear the word curse ringing inside my head. The entire time I spent riding my bike home, I was filled with regret. I wish Mion never told me that story. Curse you, Shion, this heart could have been blessed. Oh, please, chapter end. No chapter break. That would be ridiculous. It would have made sense because it's the end of the day, actually. I think we're good. I mean, I guess it's good we made 2 videos on this chapter because this chapter is hella no shot. What? Hello? Okay, well, I'm actually on the end here. Usually after a day, they actually end the chapter. It's weird. Maybe they're not ending just because there's no hints, but still, man. Anyways, it's a good place to stop. At a chapter break if they're not giving us a chapter end. But yeah, I mean, good episode. So I guess we were wrong in our prediction. Shion has taken over. I mean, it's definitely pointed toward it since there's a lot more holes in Shion's alibi, like she didn't know about the food and stuff, so, or the punishment game at all. So we'll see how Keiichi can get through this. You know, he's still feeling suspicious of people, but it really isn't as bad as it was in Anatakishi, where when Rena was suspicious, she was way more aggressive in his point of view. So I think he can still kind of come out of this cleanly. But we'll see. We'll see how Shion acts throughout this. And what's her end game? Like just getting, because again, it's not like Teichi and Shion have this connection like they did in Watanagashi. Um, but yeah, anyways, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and next time we'll see what's up in this new day. But yeah, thanks for watching. Peace.